The boy had been silent for 17 years. Aaron moved through the colony's corridors like a ghost, his footsteps barely audible against the metal grating. The other colonists had long since stopped trying to coax words from his lips. Medical scans showed nothing wrong. No damaged vocal cords, no neurological deficits. He simply chose not to speak, or perhaps could not. And after years of fruitless attempts, they had learned to accept his silence. The colony ship Perseverance had carried humanity across the void for 3 generations, searching for a new home among the stars. When they finally discovered Draconis Prime, a world of crystalline mountains and luminescent forests, the colonists thought their journey had ended. They were wrong. The planet was already inhabited. Dragons, not the mythical creatures of Earth's ancient legends, but beings of pure energy and matter intertwined, creatures who had evolved consciousness itself into an art form. They were ancient beyond human comprehension, their scales shimmering with colors that existed outside the visible spectrum, their minds vast enough to contain galaxies of thought. The dragons had not welcomed humanity with hostility, but neither had they embraced them. They simply observed, waiting, their enormous forms perched atop mountains or coiled within the planet's vast cavern systems. The colonists built their settlement in the valley, and an uneasy coexistence began. Aaron worked in the xenobiology lab, cataloging samples and running analyses. His silence made him perfect for the work. No idle chatter, no distraction, just pure focus. His supervisor communicated with him through written notes and hand signals, and Aaron responded with nods, gestures, and the occasional written word on his datapad. But every evening, when his shift ended, Aaron would climb to the observation deck and stare out at the mountains, specifically at one mountain, the tallest peak, where the largest dragon made her home. Silthara. He had learned her name from the research files. She was the eldest, the scholars believed, perhaps thousands of years old, perhaps millions. Her scales were the color of dying stars, silver and gold and deep cosmic purple. She rarely moved, perched at the summit like a living monument to time itself. Aaron didn't know why he was drawn to her. Perhaps it was recognizing something familiar in her stillness, her patient watching. She too seemed to exist at a remove from the world, observing but not participating. On the night everything changed, Aaron stood at the observation deck as usual. A storm was building over the mountains, lightning crackling between the clouds in shades of violet and green, the strange weather patterns of this alien world. The other colonists had retreated inside, but Aaron remained, his hands pressed against the transparent aluminum viewport. Then Silthara moved. For the first time since humanity had arrived, the great dragon unfurled her wings. They spread across the mountain peak like sunset itself, each membrane glowing with inner light. She lifted her massive head toward the colony, and Aaron felt, impossibly, her gaze lock onto his. The distance between them was kilometers, yet he could see her eyes. Ancient, infinite, sad. And then he heard it, not through his ears, but directly in his mind, a sensation like warm honey pouring through his thoughts, like the first notes of a song he had always known but never heard, a voice that was not quite sound, not quite thought, but something in between. Aaron, his own name spoken for the first time in a way that made it real, not the flat pronunciation of the colonists, but something deeper, as if she spoke not just the syllables but the meaning behind them, the essence of who he was. Aaron, child of Earth, walker of silence. Why do you not speak? His lips parted. For 17 years they had formed no words. His throat constricted with the unfamiliar sensation of attempting speech. The thought formed in his mind, and somehow he knew she would hear it. I don't know how. You know. Silthara's voice murmured, gentle as starlight. You have always known. But your kind taught you that words were insufficient, that they would betray you, hurt you, fail you. So you chose the safety of silence. Tears streamed down Aaron's face. How could she know? How could this alien being, this creature of another world, understand what he had never been able to explain even to himself? We dragons, she continued, spent millennia in silence before we learned to speak. We thought ourselves alone in the universe, each of us an island of consciousness. Then we discovered others like us, and we learned that loneliness is not wisdom. It is simply fear wearing wisdom's mask. The storm over the mountains intensified, lightning writing sentences in the sky, You humans arrived here frightened, Silthera said. Desperate. Running from a dying world. You expected us to be threats, to be conquerors. But we recognized in you what we once were. Voices afraid to speak, afraid to be truly heard. We have been waiting, Aaron. Waiting to see if you would find your voice. Why me? Aaron's mental voice trembled. Why not the diplomats, the scientists, the leaders? Because they never stopped speaking long enough to truly listen. But you have spent 17 years in the deepest listening of all. You have heard the universe's silence, and now you are ready to break it. Silthera's wings beat once, twice, and she lifted from the mountain. The entire colony would be watching now. Alarms would be sounding, but Aaron didn't turn away. The dragon flew toward the settlement, her massive form blocking out the storm-lit sky. She landed on the plateau just beyond the observation deck, her presence so overwhelming that Aaron's knees buckled. But he didn't look away from those ancient eyes. Speak, she whispered into his mind. Not for me. Not for them. Speak because you exist, and existence demands to be acknowledged. Speak because you are human, and humans were born with the gift of language. Speak because I am calling you, Aaron, and you alone can answer. His throat burned. His chest ached. Every muscle in his body screamed against the unfamiliar action, but Aaron opened his mouth. The sound was cracked, broken, barely audible. I hear you. 3 words. The first words he had spoken in 17 years. Silthera's eyes glowed with something that might have been joy, might have been pride, might have been relief. Then our worlds can finally speak to each other, she said. Not through translators or technology, but through understanding. You will be the bridge, Aaron. The silent boy who found his voice in a dragon's whisper. Behind him, Aaron heard the doors opening, heard the gasps of the colonists who had rushed to see why the dragon had approached. He heard his supervisor calling his name, confused and frightened, but Aaron didn't turn around. Instead, he spoke again, his voice growing stronger. I'm here, he said, and the words felt like wings unfurling. I'm listening, and I'm ready to speak. Above them, the storm broke into rain that glittered like diamonds, and for the first time since humanity had arrived on Draconis Prime, the dragons sang, a chorus of voices that welcomed one small human boy into the conversation of the cosmos. And Aaron, the boy who had been silent for 17 years, finally understood why words existed at all. They were not weapons. They were not traps, they were bridges, and he was ready to build.